Hi there, I'm Marie Kash Weltzheimer and welcome to my studio. Today I'm going to be doing a still life demo and the medium I'm using is Pastel. Along the way on the video we're going to talk about my still life setup. We'll talk about how my pastels are set up and some of the tools that I'm going to be using. We'll have a short little studio tour of some of my other pastel still lifes and maybe some oil still life because I do work in some other mediums. I like to work in oil and drawing mediums as well. And maybe some of the things I'm currently working on will also show up. So first let's talk about the setup. And this is the still life that I have set up, and you're seeing it from a little different vantage point than what I'm seeing when I'm standing at the easel. I'll be looking more directly down on it. And I have it lit from the side. And then this is my setup of pastels. Now, I'm doing something really new here, and I think it's going to be okay, but I just wanted to let you know that typically I have a variety of brands of pastels that I use. And I had them all over the top of the table on this shelf. I had them underneath in boxes that I could not get to. So I've decided to put them all in these trays according to, I have warm, cool, and earth tones. And I'm used to working this way in my field box. When I'm working outside the studio, I have a travel box that I use. But this is a new setup for me in the studio, and this is my first time doing this. So I think it's going to be okay. Then let's move on, and I'm going to talk about the paper that I'm using is La Carte pastel paper, and I believe the color is sienna, but don't hold me to that because it's been a little while since I ordered it and I don't exactly remember the color, but it's a very warm reddish color that's going to be underneath the painting. I've taken a picture of the setup so that you can see as I'm working a little easier, and I won't be using that totally. Pictures have a tendency to not give you correct information, and so the colors are more dark in the photo, so I'll be using the real life to refer to a lot, and the photo is a nice tool. The other thing that I will be using to draw is I'll be using Vine charcoal. And the reason I like to use it, and you can see it's very soft when it comes off, but it's very forgiving. And so what I like to do is use this old paintbrush, and if I want to move something or remove it, it's very easy to just take this paintbrush and completely erase that. Well, maybe not completely, but a good deal of it comes off. So it's a very forgiving way to do your sketch. And another tool that I like to use is this viewfinder. And the size that I'll be doing this is a small 8x10 size. And you can set this to a variety of formats, and I have it set to 8x10. And I use this when I'm looking at my still life to figure out how I want to orient the subject matter in my painting. So that's a tool I'll be using. So I think we're to the point that I'm going to sketch this off, and I'll record myself sketching it. So let's get started. I hope you enjoyed the fast forward of the sketch-in, and so I have sprayed my drawing, my charcoal drawing, with just some Krylon fixative, And I always, just as a note, I always take it outside because I don't want to spray that in the house. It's full of really bad things and chemicals for you to breathe, so you don't want to breathe that stuff. So I always take it outside and spray it. So what I have done is I have pulled out some pastels for my palette, and I like to use a, this is a towel that has a nice texture to it that keeps my pastels from rolling around. And the nice thing about this is if I'm out working remotely and I've got to pack up my gear and go, this is really easy to do. I just roll this up and not, you know, firmly, but not too tight where you crush them. And this works really well. I just take a ribbon or a string, tie around that, and I store it in my bag or box. This direction, I don't really store it this direction, although I think they're secure and they don't fall out. And that way when I open it back up, I've got all my palette there and I'm ready to go again. Just a little bit of some, you know, pastel will rub off on each other, but nice and easy. It's my simple little tip. So, getting started. Obviously, we're into the next day now, so you can see the sunshine out the window. But what I want to do at this point is I want to establish my pattern of light and darks. A lot of times I do a value study before I do this, but I can really see the patterns of values really strong on here. And I should have done that. I may do that in a break. Go ahead and work that out. But for now, I just want to get in a quick layer of color, and then I'll go back and enhance later. So, just starting out, you know, I've pulled out some blues and some of the turquoises in this plate, and I'll just go ahead and start by just putting some of this down. I want to show a little bit of the ridge that's running along in this plate. I don't want it to overtake my composition. So I'm just going to indicate that a little bit, starting out. And if I need to beef that color up or anything later, I can do that, or I can tone it down. But I don't want to get too heavy with it at this point. This is a Fiesta. I love Fiesta, and I love the square plates. And so I want to show the texture of that edge of the plate. Let's see. I think I'm probably going to have to get a darker shade of the turquoise. I don't want to get too dark too fast. I'm going to try not to get too hung up on too much detail at this point. I'm looking at my setup over here, and I see a pretty good bright strip of light here. I'm going to go ahead and indicate that. Probably need a little. There we go. That's probably a little bit better, value-wise. Good way to see values when you're drawing when I'm painting is to squint your eyes down, or what I like to do is just close your eyes and try to look through your eyelashes. And I have to tell you, I don't naturally have eyelashes, because if you know me, you know that I have alopecia and I don't have natural hair. So if I have eyelashes on, I do that. If I don't, I squint, and just so you can, your eyes will just filter out all the extra information, and you just get to the root of the value patterns on here. That cast shadow, and shadows on shiny surfaces are a little bit different, because you have the value, you have the darker value of the local color of the plate, but you also have things that are reflected into it. And a lot of times those things will help define the shape of what it's setting on. And so you just layer those things in one at a time. Let's go with a little bit of that texture of those ridges. At this point, I'm not trying to get those absolutely perfect. As I work in my light colors, I'll work back and forth a little bit. I do try to get as accurate of a drawing as I can to start out with, because it just works better if I start out with my drawing being as accurate as possible, especially if I'm doing a portrait. That's probably the reason why I like to do that so much. But you know, a little loose. I can go a little looser with a still life and not feel like it's going to get out of control. But if there are perspective issues, I like to get that established pretty quickly and have an accurate drawing. Let's see, there's where the light is shining on the edge of the plate there. And I don't want to get too light too quick, so let's go back down to plate is starting to turn up a little bit here, so I don't want it, even though it is somewhat of the same value, it's just a little darker than what's in here, and I don't want to get too hung up on it, but I want that to look like it's turning up. And so the way to do that is you have to have a little darker value here, because that's in shadow. And you have the little ridges where the light hits that are sticking up here. So most all of this is pretty much the same value all around here, with the exception of the ridges, and I want to hold on to some of those. And there again, I'm trying not to get too light too fast, and I can go in and move it down or up a little bit. That's a light area right there. Since my light's coming from this direction, it's hitting things on this side. That are up on the top. I'm just going to tone down this. It's just a little bit too light right now. Sometimes I like to use the edge. Sometimes I like to use the end of the pastel. This blue tape. It's nice to be able to pull it off with this paper and not rip the paper, but it just does not like to grip on this sanded paper very well. I have a love-hate relationship with the blue tape. I should probably mention that I like to cover my drawing boards with several layers of newspaper because it gives you a softer landing for your pigment. Instead of a hard surface, it creates a nice soft, it gives you, it's just the difference, like if you're using a hard pastel or a soft pastel. It just gives it a little softer landing spot. And I like the way it goes on that way. Cut some of the shape, a little bit of the shadows falling on the plate here off of the fruit. I chose a small piece because it goes a little faster, and I am not Speedy Gonzalez when it comes when it comes to painting. Not always the fastest, so I really wanted to be able to start and finish the whole thing for this demo. And I'll just work on those evenness of that. More so a little later. So I'm going to go in with some of this dark. And there's a difference in there's a little reflected light down at the bottom, but if I squint my eyes or look at it through my eyelashes, I can see it's all pretty much the same value. Same with here. It joins in here. So when I go to put that dark blue in, it's going to be my goal to find something that's similar in value. Value patterns and really getting those values nailed down is very important to me. Now, I mean, there's going to be some transition in between those as it fades out, and I will judge how I want to do that a little bit later. Okay, and so this is angled up just a little bit, so I don't want to get it too flat. You do have the side of the plate coming up, and you want to be sure and show that with your shadow. Hopefully I will get it to do that. Good thing I took pictures too, because my lemon slices are starting to get a little dry over here. That happens. Here again, this is going to be a little different in here. Now, if I want to take some of the pastel off, this brush is real handy for that. If it just gets a little too thick and I've layered too much on, could knock some of it off. You could probably, I don't know if you can see it coming off of there. It's not real good to breathe it, but I'm just knocking small bits off. So, that pretty much establishes most of the plate. So I'm going to go in and I'm actually, before I start anything in any of the rest, I'm going to go ahead and put in this value down here before I start on any of the lemons. I may even do some back here first. I don't want this area to take over. I just want it to enhance the painting and to help lead the eye through. So I'm going to start with a little bit of this dark. This is showing as a very, very dark value. When I look at the from life, it's very different. So I don't want to get it too dark. I do want it to have impact. And so I'm just going to put a little of this down and see how these contrast with each other. I don't want it to to be too hard of an edge, so I'll kind of smear it together. It's really a cobalt blue placemat. Strokes of my experiment down here at the bottom when I was pulling out my palette, and I don't think it's hurting anything. If it does, I can go in and try to knock some of that back out, but I think it's fine. I don't, and I like to have some of the paper from underneath showing, so I want to try to not overwork it too much. I think we've all run into situations where you feel like you've overworked something. And so I just try to keep it pretty light on the first pass. I'm keeping track of the time. Looks like we've gone about 22 minutes. And I don't want to go too long with this segment, so here in probably 5 minutes or so, I'll probably take a little break, and we'll start back up. And when we do start back up, I will probably start the next segment with just a little tour of my studio and some of my pastel still life. So let me finish up as much as I can here. Excuse me, I don't know what's in the air, but something is making my nose stuffy. So I apologize for that. Smearing that just a little bit, so we don't get too hard of an edge on that. And the closer that a shadow is to the object, the more the less fading you're going to have in between the edges of the shadow and the highlight. And then as they go out from the object, the edges will become more fuzzy. And there again, I can work back and forth with that to achieve how I want it to be. So we have this little bit of white cloth here. I'm not sure whether I want to go warm or cool with that, but I think I'm going to start with that's a little bright. Just some sort of a warmer bluish color, maybe a phthalo. And because I don't want it to take over. I want it to be a light color, but I don't want it to be I don't want it to become the focal point. And let's see, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just put a little bit of this underneath. Let's see, we're at 25 minutes, so tell you what, we'll take a little break now and come back, and I'll finish putting in all the rest of these first layer of these other colors.